Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here with two of my favorite people in the entire industry of global mobility, Tanya Mariottini at Twilio and Jack Jampel at Stryker. How are y'all doing, friends?
Doing great, man. Doing great. And yeah,
This is exciting.
Here.
Yeah.
Ben. Yep.
This is exciting. We're having a special episode, special time. It's an Ask Us Anything version of Love and Reload. Normally, I come up with all these amazing, insightful questions and really uncover and peel the onion. But today, actually, the viewers have come up with all the questions today. I might get one or two, but mostly about y'all out there. So get in the comments. Hit that like button if you're excited. Hit that virtual applause button, that little green hands. My favorite one. Hit that right now and get in the comments. I want to know who you are, where you are. And also, I want each person here today to put a comment, a question in the comments. Put a question in the comments and let's crowdsource this. Are y'all ready?
We're ready.
We're ready. Go for
I was like, Jack and I are born ready, right, Jack?
Oh, yeah, we're ready. Come on. Throw it at us.
Could get wild. I don't know. Could get nutty.
Well, it's early. I mean, I know you're still having your coffee bin, but we're ready.
I'm normally drinking during Love and Reload, so this might be tame. No, I'm just kidding.
And I was just saying, we don't know for sure what's actually in that mug. So
what's in the cup?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. The what's in the cup is not one of the questions being asked today. We got Naran checking in. What's up? Look at this. Christine Sadari checking in. The Love and Reload Power Lunch Special.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good title.
I love it.
Rob is grossly underutilized at Air Inc., I think. He really should be coming up with titles for podcasts. Jamie Massler checking in.
Hey.
Henri, Mark Rob, Chad Kaiser, Sean Luchins, Henri, Ingrid Van Veen.
Hey.
Look at this. Jackie Rowan, Kristen Manning. What's up, Kristen?
Yeah.
Matt Tobel, Lynn Greenberg, Cliff Beer, McKelly, Mike Wiggly. Hit that like button. Ask your questions. Andy Galecki from San Diego. Ray Abbott from sunny Vancouver. That's awesome. Drew Phillips, Letitia Ferrara. This is great. Tomorrow, let's get into it. Are y'all ready for some questions?
Go for it. Come on.
Put your questions in the comments, and we are going to run these. These have been submitted in advance. Put your questions in, and we will get to them. Let's just get right into it. Amy Yount from ExecuStay Midwest asks, what steps are you taking in the mobility process in conjunction with talent acquisition to increase retention rates for relocating employees? Very heady question.
I'm like, you started with the hardest question.
I know.
Was pre-submitted, and I'm happy to start. And I hopefully Jack has some other ideas to add, especially from a mobility perspective. I know the one thing for us, especially in tech, that's come up is we do have a lot of employees who are foreign nationals. And it's so important to them what we're doing around their work authorization, but also their green card sponsorship. And so one of the things that we've done, I know other companies out there are considering, is we don't have any waiting period to start green card sponsorship. So day one, oftentimes it's negotiated as part of the offer with the talent partner, with recruiting, to say like, hey, we will sponsor your green card and we will start that from day one. As many of you know, the green card process is a multi-year, it's a very lengthy process, but it really shows the investment in the talent. So that when I saw this question come through, that was the one thing that I thought of specifically for mobility. I will say there are other levers in comp and equity. I think that the company, especially with stock, is trying to pull for that longer term retention.
Yeah, and pretty much very close to what you're saying there. It's really around trying to help the business with the process. Okay, trying to get them as quickly as possible, being able to get them hired. If you're looking for an answer around we're doing better, benefits and things like that, that's not what we're doing. What we need to do is help them and get the employee here as quickly as possible. And our benefits, we see them as being the right benefits. So it's not something we're changing right now as a retention tool. It's more of trying to get them quickly and however we can help in doing that.
And Jack, if I could add, I think the importance also of having them join quickly is that they start to become like part of your culture and part of your company, and they understand the inherent benefits of like being part of that environment. And that really, I think that's a big selling point, especially when so many people are remote or haven't been in an office or whatever that might be, like, how do you really bring them in to being part of the company? And the sooner you can do that, I think the more successful you'll be, because they'll be engaged and excited about the work they're doing.
Yeah, great answers. I didn't tell you this in advance, but I just decided there's going to be a scoring element to this conversation as well.
Now.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's a competition. So, Tanya, I was so inspired by your answer. I'm going to give you a point for that. We actually have people who are voting here in long form. Drew Phillips said, very impressive, Tanya Mariottini. Hit that like button right now. Let us know you are out there. Kelly Guerin's checking in. Eric Masalti's checking in. Look at this. London's in the house here. We've got, how many continents do we have? This is fantastic. Mike Falia checking in. Aaron Allman. Yo, dude. What up, though? We got a question. You know what? We got a question just came in here. Letitia, how is the talent shortage impacting your companies or clients, if that's the case? So let's talk about from a company standpoint. How is the talent shortage impacting your company, or is it?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I'm going to try to get a point because
you
might.
Like you're
first
on the
person.
right track, Jack. I like
man.
the initiative.
I don't like losing. No, just kidding. Only did time.
I was going to say it'll be hard for me to beat Jack. He's got so much industry experience.
Yeah, it's interesting when this all first started, and you heard about the talent shortage and the great resignation. I took it as the great opportunity. Your good companies, if they're doing well, will use this as an opportunity to get these very talented people. And I've seen in our company, sure, we have resignations or whatever. I don't see it as much. And the reason is because of the culture and because of the type of company we are. And I think the other thing that a lot of companies should do is go to the individuals and see why they're staying. Why are we always looking at why are people leaving?
It's almost too late, right, Jack, at that point?
Yeah, right. We should be looking at what makes people stay and address that. So that's kind of my
wow, that smells like a point. Tanya?
So I'm going to take a very different, maybe more tactical angle to it. But I would say we don't have a shortage issue either, except where it comes to a lot of our talent is international. And as you know, like we hire a lot of software engineers. We have a lot of people who go to international universities here. I love that the question is from Letitia, and we can't give them visas. So I would say the challenge that we face, like we just had the HCAP lottery, I think 500,000 applications went in. The average draw was like 25%. So we're having a hard time getting the talent that we need, but there's limitations with the way that our U.S. immigration system works. So I don't think it's a lack of actual talent out there, but I think that there are just some, regulations that make it really difficult to get the talent we need. And then how do we get creative? Well, guess what? We hire them in other places instead of in the U.S. And then maybe we eventually bring them into the U.S. So again, slightly different angle on the same question. Love Jack's answer as well.
Well, you know what? And it takes amazing courage from the audience to come out and just say it. Point for Jack.
All right.
What Christine Sidari said.
Well, there might be some advantage to answering the question first.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Let's not keep score. Let's not keep. We're
I
too
think
good
at the end it's going to be a tie anyway.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just kidding. But really, Aaron says, "What tools, resources, recruiting do you use to draw talent to your companies?" Tanya, you were kind of speaking about that a little bit. Thoughts on Aaron's question here?
Yeah, no. So, and it's funny because Jack and I, when we were in the green room ahead of time, we were chatting about this a little bit because obviously I recently joined Twilio. I've been here for about 9 months, and he asked me how things were going. And I would say one of the big attraction tools, and I think what's so important to individuals, employees today, is really the value proposition. And what I mean by that is, like, I love working at Twilio because we are very invested in ESG, DEI. We truly, our CEO has said, like, if we can just leave the world a little bit better than we found it, like that should be our goal as a company. And so for me, that is a super motivating factor. The other thing that for me, especially being at a tech company, very focused on employees' well-being. We all just got a week off, a company-wide break, because people are not taking as much time off, and there's a recognition. And, the company wants you to have hobbies. They want you to travel. They want you to have friends. Like, they want you to have a life. And so I think that one of the things a lot of companies are doing, and I think we do well, check out our impact report, is really talking about, like, what are those other intangible things that when I work at this company, like, I feel like I'm making, for me, like, a bigger difference in the world.
You know, that's really interesting. And by the way, I got to commend Drew Phillips. This is the appropriate point total, 100 points for creativity for Tanya. That's going to be tough to come back from, Jack. Jack, I want to ask you a question though, because, Tanya's talking about all these, here's a week off, go have hobbies. We want, we care about you as a person, and we want to throw all this like fun stuff at you. And like, do companies focus too much on fun? Do we forget that people are working for a living, Jack? I mean, is this a little crazy? Have we gone too far, Jack, with all this warm and fuzzy stuff?
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is I came from a pharmaceutical company 10 years ago, and the company's perspective was totally opposite. They didn't care about all these fun and fuzzy stuff.
They're like, here's a bunch of money, go do your job.
Exactly, do your job. And, they used to say that is not going to make you stay, Sorry about
Somebody's
that.
calling you to correct you.
Yeah, right.
Jack. They still want to fact check you.
And they were saying that would not make you stay, or these, having parties and having these weeks offs or whatever. Then I went to Stryker, which had a totally opposite culture. I almost felt like I was in a cult, because I went from such a different culture to this culture, and it almost felt too good. And it took me a while to really, get to the point where I really do recognize it. So I really believe there's a value to it. Okay. If it's done, sincerely, and things that, people really appreciate. And I think that's changing as the different generations come into play, so I think that's what's taking place. So I do think there's a value. I think there's a balance. Okay. But definitely a value to it.
Yeah. And maybe to clarify too, I'm not talking about ping pong tables and free lunches. I'm talking about like time to volunteer in the community anyways, I just wanted to clarify it's not all the bells and whistles. It's those things that are bigger. And I agree with Jack. I think it is important that there's a balance and you don't over rev, because yes, we have lots of work to do.
Well, and I was kind of being a little facetious, about it as well. And I personally love the purpose-driven kind of approach, and I do love the time off, and I love being able to focus. And we do have an unlimited time off policy, and unlike most companies, we do not have a problem taking that time off. It seems like my whole company's on vacation all the time, and I'm just like, all right, we'll figure it out. But things are going well, so
what though, Ben, no matter what you put in place in your company, I think a lot of stress and planning need to go with managers and how they manage, because I don't care what kind of company you're in, what the benefits are. If you don't get along with your manager, or if you don't click, you are going to leave the company. So I think that is number one, no matter what your company does, is your manager's experience.
Point for Jack.
Point off. Well, we'll have to compromise. Half point for Jack. Somebody give Jack a half a point.
They don't even identify themselves. They're just LinkedIn user. Okay.
A LinkedIn user. Well, okay.
The scoring's getting nutty here. Mark Nelson used to work with me. He said arcade meetings with Ben and Travis accomplished a lot and beat Ben at NBA. You never beat me at NBA Jam. Listen, I don't remember. It didn't happen. NBA Jam is probably the arcade game I would most like to own. Is it me, or has Ben's hair gotten tall? That's a valid point, Aaron. That's super valid. Let's see here. We got questions coming in here. Chris Roberts has a fun question. People like this question here. Chris says, it's regional conference season. Have you attended any? And what trends or conversations are standing out to you? Similarly, what are we not talking about? So there's a bunch of questions in here, Chris. First of all, have you guys attended any good conferences lately?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
Would you like us to listen? So I was
follow-up question.
I saw Chris. I was at the Bay Area Mobility Management Conference week before last. I was up in Seattle at the Puget Sound Relocation Conference. I would like to talk about that one. And then last week, I saw my friend Jack at the Atlas Forum. And then next week on May the 4th, May the 4th be with you. Portland Relocation Council is having an event. So yes, I have been at some conferences.
Yeah, and I was at the Nashville event. I was also at the Atlas event, which was really a great event. And very shortly going to be doing some other ones in Ohio. So yeah, they are definitely coming up one after another. And of course, Philadelphia is next week, Park. What are we not talking about? You know what? It just seems like we're just starting to get back into loving to see everyone in person. Okay. There almost was not too much talk about mobility. It was really more of just being thankful that we're able to get together again. And you know, I saw that as a theme in all the regionals that we're going to. Yeah.
And I would just like to share as a standout. So at PSRC in Seattle, the topic was around neurodiversity in the workplace. And it was talking about there's a kind of an underrepresented group. And when we talk about D&I, like we're often talking about race, sex, sexual orientation, like all these other things, right? But there's this whole other spectrum of people that we haven't tapped into that are really underemployed. And so it was super powerful. Chelsea Azzaro connected with her on LinkedIn. She did the presentation. And so that was a standout for me, especially for a lot of us who are, you know, where diversity is so important to us and we're thinking about it differently, but I don't think we've tapped into that aspect. And it was Autism Awareness Month. So I thought it was a really nice tie-in. So that was, for me, like that was a standout conversation. And I took something away from it personally.
Yeah, at the Atlas conference, the standout was a speaker that talked about the generational differences. That was awesome. And not just the differences, but how do you deal with them and, you know, partner with them and not always look at one being the wrong and trying to change them. So I thought that was amazing. He was an amazing speaker that talked about, I think we're now into 5 generations in one workforce, which is amazing.
Yeah, which I think is one of the first times ever. His name is Jason something. I took a photo. I thought it was fantastic too. Jason Dorsey, we'll give a little shout out. And what I loved about him too is he didn't mince words. He was very clear to call out some of the things, some of the stereotypes and some of the things that exist between the generations. So I agree with you. I thought that was a really great session.
I love it. Somebody tag Jason Dorsey so he knows we're talking about him. Hit that like button if you're digging this conversation. Boomers wear watches. Mike.
Yeah. He actually asked boomers to raise their hand. He's like, yeah, y'all got a watch on.
Yeah, and if you needed any pens, you had to ask a boomer because they had a whole bunch of pens in their pocket.
You know,
it was funny and it was all true.
It's true.
Jack, is that a pen in your pocket? You carry a pen on you? Is that yeah? Very nice. Very nice.
Pocket protectors.
Let's see here. Let's see. We got people checking in here. This is great. People are loving the conversation. Richard's saying, good point, referring to the hair. Are you preparing to sneak in the palace with the guards when you're in London?
Wow.
Ooh, shots fired. This is great.
Maybe people need to send you some recommendations on where to get your hair cut, Ben.
I just got it cut. It looks good. I like it.
Okay.
Tanya's great. Hey, Jack, are you going to get a telegram next? Somebody wants to know.
No, wait, I'm going to fax you something, Cliff. I'm going to fax you something.
Cliff wants to know. Cliff has a good follow-up question, though, to Chris Roberts' question. He says, also, what are we talking about too much? Is there something that we're talking about too much? You know what I think we're talking about too much? All this like, hey, it's so great to be back together. I feel like we've been going to conferences for a little while. I'm kind of tired of talking about it. Maybe it's because I go to more than average. But you know what? Let's get down to the business of why we're here, people. Enough hugs.
I'm not done with hugs yet, but I will say the one thing, and I know because we're still figuring it out, but we talk about remote work a lot. And I saw it come as a question too. And like, what does it mean for the future of mobility and what is remote work? And I literally feel like we've been talking about that for like since the pandemic started. So I feel like we talk personally about that too much.
Well, you're going to love the questions that we have.
I know. For you today. I'm ready.
What do we talk about too much? Yeah. I obviously lump sum. You knew I was going to say that. I wish we would just stop talking about lump sum.
Hey, y'all stop doing it. We'll stop talking about it. All right.
Please submit a question on lump sums for Jack. If you
it's like all the news. Everybody's just killing each other in the news. We'll stop killing people. We'll stop reporting the news here. All right.
Like that, Pete.
Lump sum. That's fair. Lump sum is Jack's, and And Tanya's, Tanya, what was yours again? Oh,
Remote
work from home.
I was like, how could you forget that?
We got a lot going on, Tanya. Okay, my producers are out today. Okay, I got two of the biggest stars of mobility. I got 8 million questions. Way more people are watching today. I'm just blowing up over here. Okay, people are talking about my hair. It's making me self-conscious. We got another question from across the pond. Richard Majewski. Mobility is not my area. Well, he shows up every day and asks questions, so you got to be learning something. So excuse if naive. Love you, Richard. Love the questions. Is there a typical time in someone's career where they become sought after talent? Is it 10 years experience? What is it?
Well, there was a question that came up, something around this as far as career paths in mobility. And I hope I'm answering your question, Richard, on this, is that, what is my advice? And I've told this to many people in the mobility field, not so much on the corporate side, but more on the supplier side, is that mobility is not the only thing out there. Okay, especially those of you that are in the younger generations. Okay, you need companies, and I'm sorry, suppliers, unless you have career ladders. Okay, and if you have that in your companies, that is great. But you need a career ladder. You need to go beyond mobility. Okay, that I came from the opposite. I came from HR. And that's the way I grew, is getting into different areas, whether it's compensation, whether it's talent recruitment, or whatever it is. Look at the career ladder of where you are. If there's an opportunity, absolutely stay there. But if there's not, you have to look out for yourself first. And sometimes it's out of mobility. So I've given that to a lot of younger generations, recommendations. Tanya?
Yeah, and maybe I'll take again. This is why Jack and I are such a good duo. I will take a different approach on the question in the way that I understand it. And I would say, I think it really depends on the role, the responsibilities. I think in some roles, maybe you need a certain number of years of experience to be able to draw upon. But in other cases, if you're in a very specialized field, we want you right out of college, right? Like, you are key talent and we can't wait to develop you. So I don't know that there's a specific time when you're sought after talent. I think it really depends on the actual job and position and like how in demand it is, and then whether or not you have the skill sets to meet it.
Yeah, and I also think that you should put yourself in a position where you're unique, where you're needed. And the one area that I always say people should strive for is international, because that does not just have to be mobility. There is so much in companies around international. So if you can get experience international, I think it goes a long way.
Agree.
Richard, I would say to this question, whenever you are worth more to a company than they pay you, you are in demand. I think a company is concerned sometimes when they stroke a big check that a person's best years might be behind them. And then really a company is paying you for future expectation. And so I would say that that's kind of the calculus that probably happens. And it happens for different people at different times in their career and different companies. And especially to Jack's point, when you get to that company, what is that specific circumstance going to be? This is interesting. We have a lot of people who are very pro hugs. Listen, I want to clarify something. I am pro hugs here, okay? Because the huggers are going to come and get me. Don't cancel me, huggers. I'm with you. I stand united with you, okay? I will never be done with hugs.
Ben, I will say though, I did feel a little bad because when I was at the Bay Area Mobility Management Conference, they did have the little red, yellow, green as far as like how comfortable you are. And I didn't respect that in all cases because I was so excited and I like went in for a hug. And someone was like, whoa, like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're red. Like, I sincerely apologize. So not everyone's ready for hugs. And so respect other people's preferences and don't be like me and try to hug everybody.
Disrespectful hugger. Look at you.
I know. I didn't
boundaries,
mean to be.
Tanya.
I know. I felt terrible. That's why I'm admitting it publicly. I'm letting you all learn from my experience.
Check the badge first. This is great. People are digging this conversation. Hit that like button right now. I want to know what y'all think out here. We got more time for more questions. We've got some other ones that were submitted in advance, so I'm going to ask some of these as well. Let's see here. Valerie McKenzie from Deluxe says, after all these years of mobility, what is it that keeps you motivated? This one must be for Jack. Not just do the job, but to make an impact.
I think
Jack,
this is
you
easy.
seem to be down. You seem
Go
to
ahead,
be
go
down
ahead.
97
No, go for
points.
it, Jack.
No,
No,
Go ahead, go, Tony.
No, because I saw this ahead of time too, and for me, and it's why I think I've stayed in mobility for so long. You know, relocation, going on assignment, it's such a stressful time for employees, and whether you're on the front line and you're actually talking to them, or you're behind the scenes making the program and process better, I feel like we personally make such a huge impact on the lives of employees, and I get so many thank yous from people who we've helped with their work authorization, or we've helped move their family, or we've helped them with a situation, and it really does impact their personal life and well-being. So for me, like, it's easy. Like, I feel like I make a difference in someone's life. And even if some days it's directly with the employer, other days it's because I changed something in the policy that I know it's going to make it better. It's easy.
Yeah, and pretty much the same. It's the results. It's if you have a good program, it's the results. It's reading the comments from employees, and also the partnership with suppliers. You know, I had a really difficult time. It started getting a little tough, you know, not seeing people in person. And so that became tough in the last probably like 6 to 9 months. And I've definitely now seen an impact, starting to see people live and getting to talk to people. You know, that's really been keeping me motivated. But at the end of the day, it's the results and just seeing how, you know, how well we've done and what we need to do to our employees.
I'm going to read this question slightly different, though. And I'm going to say, not just to do the job, but to make an impact. And I think you're both probably, you know, very good at your jobs. But the way you go about being a member of our community and being a member of our industry, and the time and the attention that you give to all of us around here, like myself included, you've both mentored me quite a bit in my life, and been friends, you know, genuine, like I consider you both close friends. And I'm sure all these other people who are showing up here, you know, I mean, what encourages you or motivates you to take an added interest in the community and all these people outside of your program? I mean, you get a check to make sure the transferees have a good experience, but what makes you motivated to do all the other stuff, like being here now and spending time with all of us?
Well, you know what? I think it's our personalities. It's who we are. You know, we've always been those types of people that want to help. I mean, I am, you know, the biggest proponent of suppliers. I think, you know, it's a partnership that we have to have with suppliers. You're our partners. Without you, we can't get our jobs done. So it's just, that's what keeps me motivated. Just, you know, that personality of wanting to partner with you, hoping you can learn. Okay. And sometimes it's tough love, but I think, you know, giving that value and seeing, you know, the responses back to me is what makes an impact and what keeps me motivated.
And I would just add to what Jack said, is there are so many people throughout my career who have helped me and given me insight and spent their time and agreed both on the supplier, other corporates, just innumerable. I was actually telling Jack earlier, like when I first started my career, like Jack was already a legend and Jack helped me also, right? And, you know, gave me insights and made time for me. And so now that I have furthered my career, I just feel that same sense of like, hey, all these people helped me. I want to help them too. Like I got all this help. So I just add that. And yeah, I think some of it, like Jack said, just goes to kind of who we are fundamentally.
I love that, honestly, Tanya. And I remember, I don't know if it was your first ERC or not, but I met you at the luncheon. I don't even know if we still do luncheons like that. It was like a luncheon presentation.
I remember
at
too.
ERC, yeah. And we made these name tags, right? And mine was like a word to describe myself, and I wrote bold. Do you remember what you wrote on your name tag, Tanya?
I have no idea.
Me? Well, then I'll make something up. No, I'm just kidding. But there was also that thing, you know, I survived a meeting that should have been an email. That was an inside joke we had, you know, but you know, from that chance encounter we had, you know, I feel like we really made kind of lifelong friendship there. I hope you agree.
No, I agree.
I'm like pouring my heart out now.
No, and I agree. And what I would say too, and I love that Jack has continuously brought up suppliers. Like, you know, ERC, especially back in the day, could be a little contentious between suppliers and corporate. You were a supplier. You sat down next to me. I was a corporate, but we had a lovely conversation. And I wasn't like, oh, like, don't try to sell me anything, you know, like I don't have anything to learn from you, you know, type of thing. So, but I would agree. Yeah, I remember Yes, I remember a lot about that day. So, and meeting you.
I remember the first time we met, but we don't want to talk about that. Where we were.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, was it at the planning? Was it at the?
I was like, Ben doesn't remember, so maybe that's not.
I think it was at the ERC planning.
Yes.
Planning thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is interesting. This is great. People are chiming in. Jack, love the fact you treat us all equally, regardless of one of your supplier partners or are working to become one. Yeah, super interesting. Chris Roberts has a question. Estimated 23 million people moved last year due to newfound work flexibility. Are you seeing this in your employee populations, and would love to hear your take on whether this poses a duty of care opportunity for employers? And is he using opportunity in the corporate sense? Like, is this a problem, but I'm calling it an opportunity? Question.
Go ahead.
I was like, I love Jack's going to put that to me. Yeah, so, we have announced that we are remote first as a company. And so as part of that, we do have lots of flexibility. As many know, I have moved multiple times since I've joined Twilio, and they've been really supportive of me, which I'm very appreciative. I do think from a duty of care, it's really important. So I think there's two things, kind of this newfound flexibility. Yes, I think we do a very good job keeping track of where our employees actually physically live and work from. I think the broader question, and I don't know if this is where Chris is going, is that we also have, and it's out on the broader internet, you can look it up, policy where we allow employees to work for a few weeks from different locations around the world. How well is that being tracked from a duty of care? So I think there's kind of two parts, this opportunity of people actually moving all over and keeping track of them, which I think we've got figured out, but then allowing people to work from a few weeks from different parts. Is there a duty of care opportunity if something should happen? Could we locate them? I hope so. I mean, we have processes. We tell people to temporarily update their address in Workday with where they might be, to tell their manager, et cetera. But I don't know that there's opportunity. Yes, Chris.
Yeah. And I totally agree from a, perspective of doing what's legally right and everything else. The company, we are doing what we can do and managing in the best way possible. But I'm going to take a little different stab at this. If you all remember when COVID was starting and everyone was saying that the cities were going to close down. New York City was closing down. They're going to shut the offices. People are moving. They will never come back. And I said back then, they will be back. Those cities are going to be back. We are always, the worst is happening. Okay. We are and it's just not our industry, but we always are looking at things in a negative fashion. Okay. We need to change that. And now my prediction is this on working from home. We will be back. Okay. We will be back. We will be back in a hybrid approach. Absolutely. Maybe 3 days in the office, 2 days from home, similarly to that. Right now, companies are nervous about coming out and saying, we want you back in the office. So we're staying very, liberal with you can work from anywhere and you can do this and you can do that. But at the end of the day, companies need to make money. And if what was working before COVID was very successful, in my opinion, you're going to start seeing companies get a little bit tougher as the employment starts changing, and we will be back to the way we were, but with a more flexible approach.
So you really see this as more a product of the talent shortage than a long-term change in the way that we work.
It's exactly. I still think cultures will drive what companies need to do.
And we'll have to do a show in a few years. I'm going to predict, I think it's going to be different, but I think it's going to be based on industry, because I would agree that there are some, and I had this conversation with someone too, I was talking with one of my other panelists at PSRC. So I won't say specifically who and what company, but
we can narrow it down.
I give you a general idea, but they've been around for over 100 years, and so there's a certain way of operating in a certain mentality. And I think going back to the office or back to the way things were and the way they worked versus I think a lot of newer companies, and I just think of Coinbase as one example that doesn't even have a headquarter. they're 100% remote. Like we still have a headquarter and we have regional offices, et cetera. So I think that, but they're all tech. So I just seen like my husband's in manufacturing and R&D. So I just, I don't think we're going to go 100% back. And Jack's not saying that either, right? Like,
no, I'm not saying that.
But I do think that there will be companies that I believe in a few years, some companies will go back, and I believe some companies will still be fully remote. And I think it'll be very curious to see what happens. So that's my prediction. I don't think we're all going to go back to an office, not even hybrid.
No, and I wasn't saying that, but I think it definitely is industry specific and culture specific.
And culture, that's what I'm saying. Older companies versus newer tech, like there's a very different company culture.
Christine saying, agree, Jack. Many companies here in Cleveland with large campuses are not back in the office, but talking about going back hybrid. Vinny's just relating that he doesn't remember what happened yesterday, but he made it to the show today, and I appreciate you being here, Vinny. If you have a question, please leave it. Miss you, buddy. Drew, are you opening your supplier network to non-sponsored company moves, or is it work from anywhere, but you're on your own?
So I'll talk to that because, again, I just mentioned that we're remote first and people are moving I won't say all over the place, but in lots of places as legal, we have legal entities as set up, et cetera, from a compliance perspective. But we do. So we don't provide relocation benefits per se because it's employee initiated, but we do offer them to work with our supply chain to hopefully continue to, steer business towards the supply chain. And I always, when I think of Ben, I always like to use this too. Like I would much rather prefer that you use one of our household good moving companies than you pick someone off the internet. Because at least if you have, well, hopefully you won't have issues, but if you do, there's some kind of recourse and I have a relationship and we can manage this, as opposed to like your goods get held hostage or they charge you twice. So I would prefer that you use a vetted supply chain, even if it's at your own cost. So yes, we do. We've made resources available and we do try to funnel employees who are employee initiated moves to our supply chain.
Yeah. And we've made them available, but have we done it in a formal way? No, we have not. A lot of it is management decisions. Right now, I'm not getting involved in advertising that we can help people who want to move on their own. We take it on a case-by-case basis. We definitely would help if necessary. The concern that I have is that once we step in and touch this, and something goes wrong, are we now more involved in the process? So it's going to be, so we have to be careful in how we deal with this.
Well, and and it could be company culture, but if something happens to someone who's moving, even if I had nothing to do with it, it's usually my problem anyways. So I would rather help them up front and have it not be my problem, like do what I can to manage it. And then just to share with everyone who's watching, like we actually have information posted on our intranet site for employees. So they can actually, to Jack's point, like maybe they share it, but we have it posted widely and anyone can just go out there and tap into our network. And even like if I just wanted to move locally to a different house here, like I could use it for that too.
This is an excellent conversation because there's so many, you're right. There's so many things that it's a slippery slope, right? As soon as you start recommending people, they come to you and tell you how that recommendation went. But I've also gotten so many calls from HR or Global Mobility who says this person had a lump sum and there's stuff somewhere between Kansas City and Reno and we can't get anybody on the phone and the stuff's being held hostage. Can you help? I think the truck was orange. Can you call your sister van line? And I'm like, listen, I got my own shipments to worry about from customers who are, paid us money to deal with it. I'm sorry. I have no information about your missing shipment, and it's like, ooh, tough stuff. Tough stuff. Drew saying, I think there's a huge opportunity here, not only to support our employees, but our industry duty of care, ladies and gentlemen. But I would question the RMCs and say, but are you taking a percentage on that? Are you charging a fee when it's a lump sum situation? Because there's also a competitiveness about it, right? If we're going to truly compete with the Google results, we need to really be skinning down probably what we offer.
I always tell people though, you get what you pay for.
Oh, there you and that's so true. With what they say with movers and lawyers, you get what you pay for. Jack went.
Who's this LinkedIn user? Who's this LinkedIn user?
Yes.
Well, yes. They're a certain age because they referenced MC Hammer, so we can narrow that down at least.
Yes, this is great. Let's see here. Do laws and regulations, Letitia, how do laws and regulations currently help or hinder companies' ability to provide employees with opportunities to work from anywhere? What can be done about it?
So I can take that one to start with, just because I think we have a more flexible work policy. The answer is yes. And I would say that we have seen throughout the pandemic even that the tax and immigration laws really haven't kept up with what's happening. And so, there's so many requirements. I'm like, we need to do a different show on it. As far as like legal entities and registration and payroll reporting and social security, like there's so many other, people don't appreciate how complex it actually is, by the way, but there are a lot of regulations that limit a company's ability. And then, it's kind of, this sounds bad, but like how compliant, like how risk tolerant you want to be on those different spectrums. But the flexibility around immigration and also corporate tax and individual tax just, I think is like my earlier immigration example hasn't quite caught up with what we actually need or are using.
Let me pivot this then. Jack, but let me pivot this because this goes right into Janet's question. And this is a question I've actually been wanting to ask for a long time. With so much remote work, with so much desire for flexibility in the talent marketplace, are you seeing more 1099 contractor relationships versus W-2 employee hires?
Yeah, I don't see with so much remote work being what drives this. Okay, whether it's 1099 or W-2 hires, I think are business decisions. Okay, like if you want to use consultants for a project or whatever, it's not because there's a lot of remote workers out there. I mean, we'll decide to go to another country to do our finance for business reasons, or we'll decide to, use consultants for business reasons. I don't think it has anything to do with the amount of remote workers out there. It's really, I think, from a revenue driven as far as what's the right.
Well, let me push back just a little bit on this because I have a question on this. So, a couple of things. One, the employer saves the employment tax on that employee if they don't employ them. I mean, so like that's a 7.5% savings or something like that from a tax standpoint. They also don't have to pay them benefits, which is another 12% loaded cost, let's say. So they're going to save almost 20% on that employee if they are a contractor versus an employee. So yes, that is a business decision to save 20%, 100%. But also, if that person wants to work in, Iowa, and the company doesn't have a headquarters in Iowa and doesn't want to pay taxes in Iowa, or wants to work in Bali and, all the other things that go along with it, right? Now, a 1099, solves all that. So yes, it's a business decision from that's why you see all these companies wanting to use 1099s. And of course, all of the employee versus contractor, debate and lawsuits and things like that go on. But I just want to, that's the way I see it. I'm curious.
I just think it's a slippery slope to start using 1099 to allow someone to work in a different location. I don't know enough about it to, speak to it, but I think it's a very slippery slope to use it for that reason.
And I would so a couple of differing thoughts. One is that I agree with Jack, what we're saying as far as like, we would typically use it more for a consultant or a temporary need. With the amount of like time and resources that you're investing in talent you want to keep, I don't know that not making them an employee is in your best interest, because they also don't get stock and other things that would keep them from a retention. So, but I would just say, so I have a similar answer to Jack, but when I was at the Bay Area Mobility Management Conference and talking with some other corporates, there are some companies that are doing exactly that they are on, there's like a spectrum, and they're on the other end of the spectrum as far as allowing employees to really work anywhere. And they are setting up, working with like, I don't know a lot about PR, ERs, but like employment entities, and they're doing them as non-employees. So some companies are doing that. I can't speak to it in detail, but it's a great question, Janet. So
yeah. And I wonder, it is a great question. And I wonder if something is going to be done about it, if they're starting to see companies doing this for reasons like we're talking about, so that they're not taxed or entities. I wonder if that's going to start.
And then the last thing to add, sorry too, I just think of this because I've had this at other companies too. You have to be really careful about co-employment and who's actually given direction to the employee to do the work and what they're involved in and not involved in. And if they're truly not your employee, there does have to be some some separation. Otherwise, you can get in trouble for not providing them benefits and all of those other things.
Slippery slope.
Yes.
Very much so. Very much so. And Mary Lee's got a comment too that I thought was interesting. With COVID regulations starting to go away and countries needing the revenue, I do expect there will be compliance shifts which affect remote or virtual setups. So companies will need to continue to have a process for selection and due diligence from a immigration, payroll, legal, tax, etc., to lessen personal and corporate exposures. Mary Lee always with phenomenal comments here. Rebecca's got a question here, and we've got a bunch of questions. We're going to have to plow through these. Rebecca's got an amazing question. Jody recently posted on GT's survey stating that 40% of people that changed jobs recently are looking for new jobs again. I wonder how many of those are employees that didn't find the company culture and satisfaction because it was completely remote. They never became friends with their colleagues, understood who, what, where to go, etc. Jack, I'm going to ask you, what do you think's driving this turnover of turnover?
First of all, you can get metrics to show any kind of story. Okay. But let's say that I've read even higher percentages than this. What's making this change? I think a lot happened during COVID, and I think the grass is greener on the other side was what drove people to do this. People had a lot more time on their hands to look for opportunities. And now, once they're getting there and you're not familiar with anyone, you're not in the office, you don't know anyone, and they're not giving you that good feeling, that good fuzzy feeling that you were getting at your other job, you're going to continue to look. But then again, some people just never stop looking. So, how do they answer that question on a survey? Are you still looking? Yeah, I'm always looking. So numbers are tricky. That's Tanya.
I was gonna say I'm with Jack on that. And the other thing too is that sometimes I always tell people, like, don't leave a job just for the money, and make sure that the job you're going to, like, you're excited about it, and that it's not that you're leaving because the job you had before you hated. And so I don't know, like, there's a lot that could go into, like, why they changed. Maybe they didn't really think through it. They thought grass was greener. It wasn't. They thought they'd get paid more and then realized it wasn't what they were signing up for. So maybe just opportunities for people to really reflect on their values and what's important to them, and then ask really good questions and get to know the company before they make the move. Or they keep looking forever, like Jack said, like some of us.
Yeah, interesting. We got other, let's see, other questions. Oh, this is great. Look at this. What ideas are you seeing to assist, Jonathan Johnson, what ideas are you seeing to assist employees with home purchase now that interest rates are increasing and real estate values are skyrocketing? Increased lump sums or subsidies or something?
Why is this a relocation issue? Ben's laughing. Why is this a relocation issue that, should we be paying them differently? Should we be, helping them with sign-on bonuses? I get it that the economy is bad and, as far as home purchase goes. But, once you open up Pandora's box, okay, with different benefits that you want to provide, it's again, another slippery slope. I don't think it's a mobility. It's not a relocation issue. I think it's really a retention issue. It's really a hiring issue. I mean, we'll get involved in helping to administer it, but I think the business needs to help with this.
And I would say that we're not doing anything, and most companies that I know aren't taking any action either. And on the flip side, you have to think about as well, what about when things are good? Like, are we reducing stuff? Are we having them pay us back? Like, no. And so I think you just have to, we do that with a lot of things, like write out the market. And I don't know.
Now I think what we are going to have to start looking at, and I'm thinking of having a session on this, are mortgage subsidies. Now, this is a relocation thing. Okay. Now we're going to be relocating people that may have to get a higher mortgage than what they currently have. We used to have these in our policies, and I'm thinking of having a session on this because it is going to hit us. It's going to hit us within a year or two.
You're saying like buying points and stuff like that?
Well,
like
not just points, even interest rates. They may be getting 3% now, and I'm hearing 5% is coming. So that's a 2% difference, depending on how much of a mortgage you have. And we are going to have to start addressing that. And it just depends on what level you want to start addressing that. But that, to me, is a relocation issue that's going to be coming up.
But Jonathan's question, I think, in fairness, I mean, we've done loss on sale. This is like loss on purchase, right? I relocate to a new area with a very high cost of getting into a home, and it's a part of my relocation to the area, and now I can't afford a comparable house.
Well, yeah, mortgage subsidies, and Jonathan, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what you're talking about. With interest rates are increasing, I can see mortgage subsidy programs being implemented again. We have loss on sale, but that's on the sale side. It's not on the purchase side. And I have to admit that that's probably at the higher level employees. And like, Tanya was saying, we haven't, we're doing what other companies are doing. We're doing what we need to do to hire talent and retain talent.
All right, let's see here. We're going to keep it moving here. Nathan Brinker, do rising costs of goods and services, do you see with the rising costs, do you see a need to increase lump sums or miscellaneous expense allowances to improve the experience? Are we tracking our lump sum and cash benefits with inflation and other costs?
You
speak on behalf of the lump sum industry, Jack. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. The way that I really track this and understand it is I really speak to my recruiters at the end of the year and understand, did we have any recruitment problems because of our benefits? Okay. Did anyone, complain that the lump sum wasn't enough or anything like that? I think we have a very fair lump sum program, and that's, for the entry level. Okay. And that's the way that we do it. And we have it also lump sum for, temp living. So we really look at it at the end of the year and canvass our managers and our HR folks to see if we had any issues during the year.
But can't that causality get kind of lost in the mix of all the different factors? I mean, wouldn't it be easy enough to just say, listen, there's been 10% inflation over the last 18 months. Let's increase our lump sum 10%, or the cost of corporate housing has gone up 10% in the last 2 years. Can't we just increase our cost of housing allotment 10%? I mean, isn't that pretty easy math to do?
Go ahead. Do you want to?
Oh, no.
I'll answer it. I'll answer it. No. Let me answer it.
Go ahead. I can add in, John.
I don't believe that our relocation benefits should be mimicking any kind of index or anything like that.
Like tied to reality or anything.
Exactly. I think because the fact is that if you have good benefits, then you don't have to do what you're talking about doing. Okay. And that's what we have found. If it's needed and we find that, then if we're not able to hire people because of it, absolutely.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, and not to be overreactive, take a measured approach. If we're getting feedback, Jack's saying at the end of the year, but if we had a bunch of recruiters screaming at us, like, we can't hire, candidates are turning us down, they're saying it's because there's not enough money for them to relocate, then that's a very different conversation. That's not the case yet. And I know Nate's question was like, it's starting to go up. So let's see if things change. I would just share too, we have a managed cap program, and we have been talking about increasing it, but just because of the cost of shipping of household goods, right? Like, that is so gone out astronomically that it makes it difficult for us to be able to support employees. And we have had to make a number of exceptions, but a little different, but just given the current market that we're in. So we do look at it, but again, as needed.
And it's interesting, Tanya, most of the time we do agree, but I don't agree on managed cap programs.
Can I just say, Jack, that I inherited the managed cap program.
Okay.
And it's the program that we have today. So stay tuned.
Okay.
Yes. So it's my first managed cap program.
Okay.
All right. This is interesting. So Vinny says, Ben, same approach. Are companies increasing the salary for all employees due to inflation? It is not happening. No, Vinny, it is not happening. But do you also see people going out and getting higher salaries elsewhere? Wages were stagnant for a long time, but salaries are increasing, but people aren't getting them at home. They have to go somewhere else to get them, which is why you're seeing such a large number of people looking elsewhere and going and getting paid more money. Now, whether the culture is what they wanted or is the grass greener, but the water bill is just as high, I mean, we don't know. That's TBD, but you do know what you're going to get in your paycheck. So I do think that the companies might actually benefit from being proactive and actually raising.
I'm gonna say a very strong statement, and that mobility is not a retention tool. Global mobility relocation is not a retention tool. Okay, relocation is a benefit that will get you to the company, and yeah, it may give you first impression, but it's not, once they get there, they're not going to leave and say, I'm going to leave because they didn't give me a good relocation package.
But what if they didn't give you an assignment? I mean, it is a strategic talent development tool, and that does retain people, doesn't it?
Yeah. Assignments, absolutely. I'm more domestic, but.
Okay. And I would say internal transfers too, like the opportunity to move to another location and move up in your career as well.
Yes.
We have got so many questions we have not even got to. This is so interesting. Oh gosh, where do we begin? We
got 5 minutes. Come on, Ben.
Christine, I know you people have hard stops. You're busy people. Christina from Price Point, of all the verticals in your mobility program, which supply chains give you the most headaches?
Immigration.
Oh.
Yeah, I would agree. Immigration is the biggest headache.
And it's a lot of it not with the supplier, but just with changing regulations. Yeah. It's been, especially through the pandemic, now with the war in Russia, Ukraine, like it's a mess.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. All right, here's one. What's the best paying job in global mobility? People out there, I mean, let's be honest, we come to work for a reason.
Oh.
What, in your opinion?
I don't work for the money, Ben. What are you talking about?
Sorry, the rest of us. I'm sorry. You're probably going to retire before any of us. What is the best paying job in global mobility that you've heard? You've heard the scuttlebutt. What do you think it is out there? I'm really curious myself. I'm over here and I like to, we recruit people and stuff.
This is a weird question. I don't know if corporate or suppliers get paid more. When you work on the supplier side, there's a lot more career pathing because you can go all the way to CEO. If you're in mobility at a corporate, like whether it's senior manager, director, like depending on the size of the program, you can only get to a certain level. I've always thought about that from a job perspective for myself, but I usually don't ask people what they get paid because I don't really care.
I hear salespeople do pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay. So we should be in sales, Jack.
The RMC side or the other types of supplier side, Jack?
I think it's a very difficult area of mobility, but I think that from the supplier side, that's kind of what I hear. I've never experienced.
Well, let's pivot this. I got another question here for you. If you had to work on the supplier side of mobility, which industry would you work in? You can't be corporate anymore.
You know what I'd like?
I'm over to the dark side, Jack.
Okay, I would be in the RMC industry. Okay, but I would not stay in one position. There are so many opportunities in the RMC business, in marketing, in IT, in finance. I would use the RMC as a career, to not just do the same thing, but continue to grow. Yeah, RMC I see as the biggest opportunity with different areas.
Vinny's getting into his May the 4th over here. He's
promoting. Side. He's part of the PRC board. I would just +1 as a quick answer to what Jack said. I think the RMC side is so broad. It would give you so many opportunities.
This is great. Let's see here if we got another one here. Here's one. What's the best conference to go to? And what's a conference that you want to go to, which you haven't yet gone to? So favorite conference, and let's call it bucket list conference.
Can I say it's hard to say the best conference because if you haven't been to all of them, like you don't know what you don't know, and there could be like a really amazing conference. The one conference that I would like to go to is the ARA Spring Conference because they usually do spring training with the baseball teams, and the weather is nice. And for a lot of us, like that's not about the content. Maybe that's not a really good answer. Back to me being like partying all fun. I work hard. You all know me. But again, I don't, there's a lot of conferences that like Jack goes to because he's more on the East Coast that I don't really have any familiarity with.
I would love to go to a SHRM conference. I've never been to one, but I've heard so much about them and how big they are and how much information and speakers. They have great speakers. I'd love to go to a SHRM conference. I've never been to one.
I went to I remember my first SHRM conference was the 50th anniversary, and we heard Condoleezza Rice spoke, Tom Brokaw spoke, and I think the entertainment was Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So one other thought for our mobility folks, because there's some overlap with corporate travel. So if you haven't heard of GBTA, they're the Global Business Travel Association. I managed travel for about 8 years. They're like ERC on a much bigger scale, and it's a pretty amazing. And again, there's some synergies in the travel industry for some of our suppliers. So check that out.
I love it. People are saying van line sales is my guess. Christina's company audits the charges, so she would know. Let's see. Rob's got it. Rob's got inside track here. Ben's barber/stylist is probably up there.
Oh, yeah, people are really liking that.
Six-figure job. Ura is the bucket list. Yes, I'm going next month to Ura in Seville. That is, I'm looking forward to that one.
Wow.
Big time here. Let's end on this question right here. What career advice would you give to a millennial or Gen Z in this industry?
I have lots of advice, but go for it, Jack.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it gets back to what I was saying earlier, is that I think you really need to look at where your career is going and where can it go where you are. Okay. I was with a company for 20 years. And as long as I continue to grow and as long as they give me opportunity, there was no reason for me to look elsewhere, and the culture was right. So I would say that look at where you are today and see if there's opportunity. And if there's not, then you need to look for another industry, because you have to look out for yourself. And if that's what has to happen, then, the mobility is tough. You hear people here for so long because they love the people. Absolutely. We all love each other. We all hug each other, but it doesn't pay the bills. Okay. And if you really want to get ahead, if you really want to be a go-getter, it may be outside the mobility industry.
Wow.
I'm going to give different, broader advice. And this is advice I give everyone, but the one is just to be curious. And I think it goes along with what Jack is saying, but to really understand what you enjoy doing or might enjoy doing, like dabble in other things that might be of interest to you. So be curious. And the other one is say yes, even if you don't know how to do something, because that will open a lot of doors. And again, you'll learn, and maybe you'll find something that you really have a passion around that you didn't know, or it might not have crossed your plate. And then again, hopefully that kind of helps you narrow down the areas that are really of interest to you. And I will just second, though, Jack, is that 100% look out for yourself, because you might think your manager or whoever is, but they're not. Like, you got to be in charge of your own career, and you got to be looking out for number one, which is you, because literally no one else will do it for you.
And can I add something else? And I have seen so many amazing people in the mobility industry stuck in certain jobs that I scratch my head and say, why are you not giving these people an opportunity in other areas to grow, take advantage of it? Mm-hmm. I think you need to look at your organizations, look at who those talented people are at these regionals and ERC and how they speak, and LinkedIn. There is so much talent in this mobility industry. Use them in the best way that you can, and they will stay.
Or somebody else will snag them, Jack.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm out here snagging people. So if you want to get snagged, let me know, and we'll snag you somewhere good. No, but this has been amazing. Tanya, Jack, you don't disappoint. Believe it or not, the score is tied. I don't know how that happened. With a 100-point lead, Jack came back in the fourth quarter. Well done. This has been great. Thanks to everybody who got in the comments. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions, both live and in advance. Hit that like button, hit that virtual applause button, send a little heart out there to Tanya and Jack for being with us today. This is amazing. We wouldn't have a show without all of you who who are watching today, and we wouldn't have a show without our wonderful
And Ben,
guests today.
thank you.
Yes.
Ben, thank you so much, man. We could
Yeah.
not do this without you. You're amazing. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you.
And for
Well,
the
thank you
industry.
both, and thanks for being friends. I appreciate it. And everybody, stay tuned. Tomorrow we have folks from Air Inc. doing a mobility outlook here, so it'll be a little data-driven. Can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. See you later.
Thank you.
Thanks.